We own Lincoln. And it is a special night because it will be announced as the 400th sellout. 31 million tickets have been sold since 1962. The person that had the job of selling tickets on game day out of the ticket office hasn't had a job since 1962. And I think what tonight is a tribute to the loyalty and the routine of the Nebraska football fan. And I say loyalty, Nick, because there's this trend on TikTok, which you guys would like to get on there. It's nowhere near your Talk to algorithm.
Was a heartwarming show.
But there's a TikTok trend where they go, "We're from Nebraska. That's what we do." And I thought about that from the standpoint of Nebraska football, Memorial Stadium. We're from Nebraska. That's what we do. We are the most loyal group of fans that you will find anywhere because there are a lot of reasons to give up on the program, to go away, but it rewards the loyalty of people that go in that stadium and have stayed close to that program through all of the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and telling your kids about the 90s, and they go, the 90s? I had to watch the 2005 team. And you're like, well, but you're still a fan, right? So I think it's a tribute to the loyalty of the fans. And then why I say the tribute to the routine, because we have a lot of listeners this morning that are on a Friday with a game day and we're doing a show. They're telling us, all right, hey, I'm in the parking lot at 11. A friend of mine took a picture, sent it to me. There's already people lined up to get into the parking lots that open up at 11 in Lincoln. But we all have a routine if you're going to a game. You know what time you need to leave your house to get to your parking spot so you don't get caught in traffic. You have a route that you take where you get off on 80. Maybe you take a shortcut that you don't tell anybody about, but you find your way into your spot. You have a routine of when you get to your spot, what do you take out of your vehicle for if you're tailgating or where you're going first to tailgate. You have a routine on game day is I'm going to stop by this. I'm going to stop by that. I got to walk by this. I got to walk around the stadium on the outside. I got to stop by this statue. I got to go rub the elephant because that's good luck. And then your routine is we got to get into the stadium early. I am always blown away by the one thing about this fan base is people respect and know the game of football and love the game of college football, whether it be the team that's in red in that stadium or the other team. They just like the sport, that they get to the stadium early. They want to go see warm-ups. They want to see how guys look. They want to see players come out. And your significant other is like, are you crazy? Why are we in the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff? But you have a routine where you sit, when you know to jump up and go to the bathroom, when you know to sit down in your seat, because if you jump up and you cheer a play, you're going to lose your spot. Okay, so your butt cheek is now in the aisle and not on a plank. And then you have a routine after the game. You might hang around and you let the kids, after the band departs, go on the field and throw the football around. And then your routine is you get in the car and you drive home and you listen to Big Red Overreaction and you talk about the game. And you know what? In a place that is rewarded for the loyalty and the routine of the fan, you're going to turn around and do it again the next Saturday.
And you're right. The routine's a big part of it because you think about the only reason a fan wouldn't go if they are regularly attending games, and that's usually a major event. Maybe there's an illness, there's unfortunately maybe a death in the family, maybe there is that wedding that they just cannot get out of, and they will reluctantly go to the wedding. I mean, the things that keep the fans away from Memorial Stadium, I think, is all you need to know about the loyalty, because it's usually something that is major in their life. I also think about what this fan base has endured compared to other programs that would be going through something similar, where you could be a football program that has a lot of support, the attendance is good. You're almost sold out every game. You get a couple of sellouts here and there every year, but we know how that wavers when it comes to, especially, I mean, I know how, as I've gotten older, I value convenience more than anything. And if it seems like, yeah, what I'm going to go watch is not the best product in the world, And God, then I got to go all the way down there. Then I got to deal with parking. Then I got to deal with this. And you start to almost talk yourself out of it. The amount of people that talk themselves into it, even during a 3 or 4 or 5 win season, or when you just have been punched in the gut so many times that you continue to believe. And I think you're right. I think it's the genuine love for this sport, but I think it's just the genuine love for knowing that they're part of the support for those student athletes. Because I mean, you heard Matt Rule say this last year, and we've heard other coaching staffs talk about it when they witnessed that first game day atmosphere, and they all mention the same thing that you brought up, and that is how many people are there during warmups. And that scene before the Colorado game where the student section was essentially filled while warmups were going on. And I know sometimes that can be a rarity, but the unwavering support, regardless of what the team is doing, or because we know the first game of the year, no matter what people are saying, good or bad about the team's prospects that year, you always feel like there's that hope. But we're talking about in the middle of maybe what is a dreadful season. And yes, your eyes will tell you, okay, there looks like there's some seats that are empty. But the fact that the majority of the stadium, even in some of the most lean years and lean times during those seasons, is at 80% capacity, 90% capacity physically with butts in the seat, also says a lot about it. So, I mean, we know this. It's easy to support winners. It's easy to come back year in and year out because your program is always nationally relevant, top 25, even top 10 relevant. It's when those fans continue to show up in a almost decade that has existed where you haven't even made a bowl game, where you haven't even eclipsed 5 wins, to endure that and still show up time after time after time. I think more than anything, that's what this sellout to me means. It's not just the fact that this spans all the way back to the 60s, but what this program has endured as of late, yet that support has not wavered.
Here is Jeff. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. Great show, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to, regarding Nebraska football fans, just in general, I agree with everything you guys have said. You know, and everybody has a vice, right? Nebraska football for this state is this state's vice. It's like the one place, the 4 hours out of a day where you can go and just kind of forget about everything else, about work, about whatever might be a stress in your life, and just forget about it and watch football. And you know, I think there's a scene from a movie I think that sums up what Nebraska football really is, and it's a scene from Hoosiers. I'm sure I know you guys have seen it. I'm sure many people out there have seen the movie. But there's a scene in the movie. It's nighttime, and they're headed to a game, and the bus is leading the way, and the cars are all lined up behind it, and they just all the headlights of the entire town following the team to the next game. That's Nebraska football.
That is a great connection, Jeff. I agree with you. You know, it's different. Not a lot of places are built like this. It's the only Division I football program in the entire state, and we only have 1.9 million people here. And it's the identity of the state of Nebraska.
It really is, and it just there's really no. I have nothing else to say. I guess there's really no other way to say it or sum it up.
Thank you, Jeff. Good phone call. Appreciate it. Have a good Friday. There's the other thing about that stadium, and trust me, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly of that stadium. It's over 100 years old. It needs some refinement, but it's ours. You know, you're not getting rid of it. You'd like to spruce it up a little bit. Everybody knows that it needs to be patched up here or there, but it's ours. And even in our role as media that maybe, you know, don't go to games as in the fan role in the stadium, in the seats, like we used to, there is still something about that place when you drive from Omaha to Lincoln and you're on I-80 and you can look to your left and you start to see the skyline of Lincoln and you see the penis of the plains, and then you move to the right and you see Memorial Stadium from a long distance. And then when you get off of 80 and you take 180 into downtown Lincoln, and you're getting closer, and you can see Pinnacle Bank Arena on the right, and then on the left you see it. And who hasn't been driving by, and you, as you're driving, try and take a picture as you're driving into downtown Lincoln? Or I think this is where it really hit me. One of the first times I ever was in Lincoln and saw Memorial Stadium. When you are driving down Vine Street and you are inching closer to where Memorial Stadium is located at 10th, and you start to see it in the distance, because you can see like the press box area and you can see the lights. And as you start to make your way down Vine and you get closer and closer, and it becomes larger and larger. And then finally, when you get right there and you're about a block away and it sits right there in front of you, man, if you don't get the feels, and then the other part of getting the feels about that place, and I've told this a lot about the stadiums that I go to. If I can walk into a stadium and it gives me an emotion, you got a banger. There is no one, and I mean no one, and if I'm off, please call us, that when you walk into Memorial Stadium and you are making your way up the ramps or out of the elevator, and you come through the vomitory and you come up, and the first time that you see the stadium and you see the sea of red, if that doesn't do something for you, I mean, all the place elicits emotions for a fan.
Yep.
That it's pretty damn cool to be in a place that loves the game of football just like you, and that's a cathedral to the game that has stood for over 100 years, and tonight we'll have the place full again for every home game since friggin' 1962.
The feels part of it, I think a lot of us would channel back to when we were young. We remember our first game. And that's the other thing, too, when you can remember in detail the first game that you ever went to. And for me, it was actually a Clete Blakeman game in '87 against Kansas. But similar thing, you come out and there's the field, there's everybody in red. And not to steal what our last caller brought up as far as a movie quote, but I'll throw another movie in because I don't even know if it really happened when Dan Rudiger started or not. But when his dad says in the movie, this is the most beautiful sight these eyes have ever seen. You know, that's a grown man that grew up loving Notre Dame football, apparently, in the movie, that is, and had never been there. But as a kid, you're probably not going to articulate it that way, but it's going to stop you in your tracks, and you're just going to kind of look around where you don't even know how to react. I remember that feeling. I know everybody who's been to games remember that feeling. They remember every detail about that game that they went to. They remember the players that I was excited to see Steve Taylor play quarterback, but he wasn't in that game. But it was still like the most amazing scene that I could ever remember. And then this is interesting because it kind of came full circle last week. I'm with a group of friends that are Northern Iowa alum, and some of them had been to a game. Mm-hmm. And when they went in, they said, damn, I didn't think it'd be this packed for this game. I'm like, it's another sellout, because we come in from the north side. So we're looking directly over to the south end zone, and you're seeing, again, the first thing I looked at to see was the student section all the way filled to the very top of the South Stadium, which it was. It's overwhelming when you see it at its capacity, and you come out in certain times of the game. Like if you're coming out right before the tunnel walk and you're hearing the Husker power going back and forth in the stadium, and even opposing fans get goosebumps. And here's the other thing that I experienced a little bit of this, because I was also at the game with a couple fans that are Iowa fans. They get really annoyed by how packed and how Nebraska claims that sellout streak, and they want to poke holes in it. But I know for a fact, deep down inside, if you had the same thing going on at your stadium, you would completely embrace it. Like that's the other true side of like how cool it is when it actually, it drives a jealousy streak to other fan bases that they want to kind of knock it down,
poke
but then
holes.
they realize this is pretty sweet. They'll never maybe admit it to you, but
you can take away the 400. Just say since 1962, this is the most loyal fan base that exists in the game of college football.
Right.
And it doesn't need a number. It just needs the year.
just to look at it.
That's
I've
a great
told you,
point.
I've told you boys this since obviously since I've known you here, Gary. And growing up, I'm 41 years old, and growing up far away from here, never thinking I would live anywhere near here one day. Always loved college football, and my dad used to give me crap all the time because I love watching Nebraska football. I wouldn't call it a guilty pleasure. It's just a pleasure. I love the style, love everything about it. Love this sea of red when they used to talk about how it's the third largest city in Nebraska. To me, it was like, hey, this is cool. I'd like to go see a game there one day. Again, never thinking that one day I would live there. And years later, I grew up, I marry into a family of diehard Nebraska fans. I mean, the whole thing. I always joked about fighting over tickets before our relatives even gone yet. It's the whole classic thing. And I still get those feelings when we go to a game there. We went to the Colorado game, and I just knew I would end up in that stadium for that game. But when I hear you two talk about this, and I very much respect the history and of it, and then of course you guys' personal stories with everything that you guys have been through with it, and even the people who listen and the people on the stream, I still get that feeling of, wow, subconsciously somebody was trying to tell me something 25, 30 years ago that one day that place would become a very big part of my life and my family's life. And when we moved here a couple years ago, to me, that was the biggest, like, okay, this is pretty damn cool. So to be sitting here and taking this in as my job, to hear these stories, this is the best. And it's the stuff you dream of. I'm a college football sicko, and I'm in the right place for it. And, I could listen to all you guys' stories for hours and never get bored of it because they're all different. Oh. I just apologize that my first game at Memorial Stadium is completely different than pretty much everyone because it was the 08 Missouri game that they lost 52-17. I'm very sorry for that. But I had been to many Nebraska games prior, especially in my hometown, just not in Lincoln until then. I've been to many more since.
Yeah, you were also at the 07 game in Lawrence, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was too. Didn't like that.
Yeah.